There's this Anakin and Padme meme that I'll put here that is all about putting an image into Word and how it just totally ruins everything. In another text meme, there's like a demon standing amid your destroyed workspace. Demon, how? How were you able to summon me? You frantically clicking undo, screaming and crying, I don't know, I was just trying to format an outline in Word. You were supposed to be bullet points. Like, there is an entire subculture about how hard Word is to use sometimes. I was not always good at it. I had to be taught by one of my college roommates how to use comments. My senior year of college, I was pulled in to help an older graduate student who was working on a dissertation and couldn't figure out how to format it to the guidelines. I went over to her house and I read the guidelines, and I felt like I'd said that I was fluent in Spanish because I could keep up with Dora the Explorer. Like, it was so far from my capabilities. I made my way through her dissertation and changed every single heading to the right size by hand. I kept scrolling back to the table of contents that I created by hand after pressing the period button a bunch of times to make where the page number goes and then double check the page number and just all of these things that I would go on to eventually, through my career, learn how to do better to the point where now I am not only actually fluent in Spanish, fluent in Word, so to speak, but I teach courses on it. I've taught webinars. So, yeah, I want to share 5 things that I wish more authors knew how to do in Word. Tip number 1 is how to use styles. Styles are right here on the home, and a lot of people, I feel like, either ignore these or are intimidated by them. But if you're going to submit a short story to an editor, they're going to want Times New Roman double spaced because that's just the way things are. So if I select all my text, come up here to Times New Roman, size 12, double spaced, indented, that's just a shortcut to indent by inch, remove space after paragraph. Now, what people don't know is you can update these styles. Like, obviously, this heading is ugly. We don't want to use it, but we can update this to match what we've done. Part 2 of tip 1 is how to add a heading. If we called this short story 1, a lot of people I know would go in here and say, make it size 14 and bold. And that would be how they do it. So we can go through and do the same thing where we update heading 1 to match selection, and it will now show up under our headings. And if we did need to add another short story, we could just triple click it, use our new heading 1, and it will show up there as well. I will do an in-depth video on how to do styles eventually, but right now that is the shortcut that I wish that a lot of people knew. Tip number 2 is about find and replace. I had gotten a story about a flight attendant named Bree working on British Airlines serving Bree because what I see a lot of authors do is they search for Bree, and then if they want to change her name to Emma, they just press replace all. And what ends up happening is we get the a millionth flight attendant Emma on Emma Tish Airlines and serving a French MA cheese, right? That I see so many horror stories on threads about that issue. So I want to show you, again, 2 parts to this tip. The first is that we can go in and we can say match case. Now, if we replace it and we replace all, Brilliant no longer changes. However, we still have the problem of British Airlines and Brie cheese because both of those are capitalized. So what do we do instead? You could, of course, go through and find next and then only replace the right ones, but on a novel of 100,000 words, that's a lot of work. Find whole words only is going to help. What we're going to do now is replace. And now only 6 things were changed. Brilliant stays, but also British and Brie stay. And now my story makes no sense because the computer thought it would be funny to write a story about the Brie connection. And that's why we don't let AI write stories. But anyway, that is tip number 2. Tip number 3 is actually about that horror story from my dissertation days. I went to create a table of contents by going like this. Show my paragraphs here. And then going like this and saying short story 1 and then pressing period a lot. I would press it until I got to the next line, and then I would delete 2 and then type 1. And then if that didn't work, I would delete until it fit on one line. And this looks a lot better than it did 20 years ago when I was messing this up and all of the periods were poorly spaced, but this is still not the best way to create a table of contents, especially when we've used headings. The reason that we use styles is so that Word knows what we're trying to do, and we can go through and it will add one for us. Tip number 4 then has to do with how to make this be the right page number when you have front matter. We're going to take all of these returns. You could go to layout, breaks, insert a page break, and that is at least better than pressing return a lot, which drives me crazy as an editor. But what we want to do here is a section break. Again, this is a short video, so I'm not going to go into a lot of details right now, but a section break means that we can change things for only parts of the document, like the page number. We're going to format the page numbers, start at 1. And now, without even actually adding a page number, I can go into this automatically created table of contents, update field, update page numbers, and it will update itself to 1. That is just a brilliant thing that I wish more people knew how to do. So my next tip is one that I actually had to do this week for an author friend of mine who had made changes to a document away from the editor's copy and then needed to merge them. That happens, I think, a lot. Either you forget to track changes or you're not using the most recent copy and you need to combine them. And there's actually a way to do that fairly easy with this combine button. What we're going to do is we're going to find Brie Original. And then we're going to find Brie Edit, which is the document we're using right now. And then we're going to combine. Now, all markup is the standard. This is what you're going to see. You can see not only the changes that we made with adding this and changing the name from Brie to Emma. I'd asked Claude to make me 2 versions so that I could show you this in particular. And now we have combined the documents. All of the changes that were made to the Brie edits happened, including adding the table of contents, changing the page number. But this can look overwhelming. We can't actually tell how things look. So simple markup is something that I found a lot of people don't know about. And it makes it so that any changes are just shown in a red line on the side. So if there was any line that, say, didn't have a change, say I accept that, accept that, accept that, accept this, accept some more. Now when I show simple markup, there's at least one line here that is not showing changes. So to recap, when you are trying to create specific styles, use the style thing. Don't be afraid of it. If you want something to look different than it did, then you can make the changes to one paragraph and then just hover over the thing you want to change, modify, update it to match the selection, and it will do what you need it to. We learned about how to create a table of contents, how to update page numbers and use section breaks, and how to use find and replace advanced with whole words only and matching case. And I hope you learned something new today. Go ahead and click subscribe.